when in a third country like Mexico, you hear about Canada, you usually envision that things are going to be better than both of us together sharing a room because, as you know, Canada is expensive. So the only thing we could
Yeah,
afford
of course.
was sharing a bedroom in basement. I was kind of like terrified because it was a really old house from the 70s. It has mold in it. I can see that it had some water damage. It was really bad. We would get into a system that is more welcoming for international students and immigrants, but I have found that is not
Hmm.
the case. Everything is harder for
Hmm.
international students. Like if even opening your bank account back then was super hard. You want to rent an apartment? Good luck because you need Canadian references. The actual
Hmm.
system is not aligned to welcome people. It's quite the opposite.
So, navigating life as an international student is a thrilling roller coaster, filled with twists, turns, and unexpected loops. In this intricate journey, having a reliable guide is not just valuable, it's indispensable. And today, we are in for a treat as we sit down with the visionary founder behind a crucial resource for international students. His narrative takes us from the vibrant landscapes of Mexico to the dynamic streets of Canada. Our conversation delves into the intricacies of Immigration 101, touching upon the highs and lows, the job search saga, and the delicate process of unlearning and relearning. I love talking about this. But that's not all. He's not just an explorer of the Canadian dream, he's also the driving force behind THRIVE magazine, a digital sanctuary tailored for international students, crafted by former global academics for the current wave of learners. THRIVE is more than a magazine. It's a compass guiding students through the twists and turns of their academic adventure. So join us for a profound discussion that peels back the layers of identity, confronting the challenges of accents and addressing the weighty question of imposter syndrome. Please welcome Javier Lavelle.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. From now on, whenever somebody asks me what I do and who I am, I'm gonna play that intro because that was amazing. That was amazing. I couldn't have done any better, my friend. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Super excited, my friend. Thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. So, Javier, this episode is actually part of my second season where I'm trying to turn up the fun factor a little bit. So, I will start with some fun questions. So, are you ready?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Perfect. So, first is what's your go to breakfast?
My go-to breakfast. Huh, that's a good question. Um, I'm a sweet tooth, so probably would be French
Okay.
toast. But
Okay.
as you know, when you get older, your body doesn't process things as you did before. So now I shouldn't eat that much
Hmm.
sugar. So I need to find another go-to breakfast. Sadly enough, yes.
Okay. Okay. So, you are still on the French toast, you're saying?
Not anymore. Not anymore. That was usually my
No.
go-to breakfast, but not anymore.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So, what is it then now? If you can share.
I'm finding. I'm trying to find it. That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Now
Okay.
I am lost.
Great.
Now I am lost. Yes.
Okay. I usually eat the oats. Like I think I'm eating the overnight oats from past many years. So that's like my go-to every
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That too. That too. Oats with a little bit of fruit, yogurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So second is share like a favorite song or a dialogue or a movie and tell us why it's significant to you.
That's a good question. Um, I think one of my favorite movies would be The Martian with Matt Damon, the one in which he is stuck in Mars. I don't know if you have seen that one.
Okay. No,
Um,
not really.
and I really liked it because it's science fiction, and the the whole movie it has two things that I'm interested in, which is science, but also it's quite fun, even though it's a serious topic and it's a scientific topic. It's a really
Hmm.
fun movie. Um, so I really like it, and the reason I like it so much is because in this movie, this person, Matt Damon, he gets abandoned on Mars. So when you are
Okay.
alone, completely alone in a strange planet, you need to survive on your own. So there's many aspects of that
Hmm.
that I identify with being an immigrant, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of like when you said that he's abandoned in a new world, it kind of reminded me of the immigrant experience. That's how
That's
sort of it
correct.
is. Like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. So, next is if you could teach us something in your native language, that would be great.
Teach us, but do you want me to speak in Spanish?
Yeah. Something like something like a phrase or a word or like a greeting, anything you can teach us.
Oh, okay, okay. I would say, vamos por unas cervezas, which is let's go for some beers.
What is it?
Vamos por unas cervezas. Let's go for some beers.
Oh, let's go for some
Yeah.
beers. Okay. I'm not going to try to say that. I'll completely butcher it. but but I'll definitely add that in the show notes for listeners to see that.
Do you know any word in
Yeah.
Spanish?
Me?
Yeah, yeah,
I do know like hola, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien. I know like the initial greeting.
yeah.
I
Of
know
course,
that,
of course.
but I don't know in detail. Yeah. I actually had a classmate. She was from Chile, and I think she taught me this word. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll just try again. It was called chivere, which means like amazing,
Oh,
like that.
chévere,
Is
chévere.
that so?
Yes, yes,
Chivere.
yes.
Yeah,
We have
I
that in
remember
Mexico
that. Yeah.
too. We don't say it that much, but we have that in Mexico too. Yeah.
She had a sticker on her laptop, and that's why I asked her that why
Ah,
that sticker. So that's how I got that. Yeah.
got it, got it. Yes, chévere.
Yeah. Okay. So, lastly, if you could teleport back to a particular place from your home country or anywhere, where would it be and what would you do?
Hmm. Um, I think that's an easy question. I would go back to my parents' home. Um, it's a really nice house. I have a lot of nostalgic feeling when I think about the house of my parents. So I will go
Hmm.
back to the house back then, not even now, because now my father has
Hmm.
remodeled some parts of the house, so it feels different, especially because these changes came when I was
Hmm.
already here in Canada. So I go back to my
Okay.
childhood house. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it did
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I
yeah.
think it's also like when I sometimes visit back, what I always like think about this one quote. I don't know where exactly I heard it, which is about like everything looks the same, seems the same, but the only thing that's changed is you. Like you're also like sort of like changed
Mm,
now, right? When you go to like a new place. So yeah. Okay.
right, right. Yes.
So speaking of that, let me take you back to the time you spent in Mexico. Tell us a little bit about your formative years there and how was it like just growing up there?
Sure. Growing up in Mexico, so I'm from Mexico City, which, as you probably know, is a really, really
Hmm.
big city. 22 million people, something like that. So it's 10 times bigger
Hmm.
than Vancouver. Um, and Mexico City on its own is like its own entity. It has a personality. Every city has a personality. Mexico
Hmm.
City has one.
Yeah.
For me, Mexico City has um, has two Mexicos in it.
Hmm.
There's a Mexico in which people are struggling a lot and therefore is quite chaotic and violent and there's crime happening, right?
Hmm.
And there's the other Mexico in which people are having the best time and also people is kind of all the people there is really warm. They're willing to help, right? It's all
Hmm.
about helping others. So if you think about it, those two Mexicos are quite different. They're actually opposites, right? So
Yeah.
it's hard growing in Mexico City because many times you feel like I really like this Mexico, but I don't like the other one, the one that is really hard. And therefore, the sensation that experience growing up there gave me was like I'm not sure if I like it here or not because I'm in love with the
Hmm.
Mexico that is really warm with you, but I'm totally opposed to the other kind of Mexico. So it's a weird sensation.
Like, where will how about like navigating these two worlds then? Or where were you before? Or how did you like just jump from one to the other? Or how was it like?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I grew up in a family that, fortunately for us, we didn't miss anything, economic speaking. Um,
Okay.
and therefore, you are in the Mexico that is quite nice, right? But when you
Okay.
go down into the real world, for example, when you go to school, I went to school with people that had
Hmm.
almost nothing. And therefore, you need
Hmm.
to interact with the reality, and their reality affects
Yeah.
yours, right? So again, it was a weird feeling trying to identify, like, oh wow, so these things that people are going through, which are quite real, which are not known to me, right?
Hmm.
They are a real thing, and I didn't know. I grew up in a bubble, right? Um,
Yeah.
so seeing that firsthand, especially when I get to middle school and high school, because that's the moment in which I went out of my bubble. So that was kind of hard, and that feeling gave to me the sensation that I have right now with Canada, which is I'm not from here, but I'm not from there either, which probably you have, right? When I go back to
Yeah.
Mexico now, I have this feeling that I don't belong anymore to Mexico because I've been so long in Canada now that it's kind of like I don't belong there. But I also in
Yeah.
Canada, I don't think I belong, right? I'm still the immigrant or the outsider. So that same sensation is the one that I had in Mexico all the time. Yeah.
Okay. I definitely, it's true. I think when I also go back, I'm not uh, Indian enough anymore, and I'm here, I'm not Canadian enough for
Of
the local
course,
people.
of course.
So you're like kinda in the limbo. I think we have covered this multiple times on the podcast. You definitely feel like, okay, where do I actually belong? So kind of like lost and still finding your path, so to say. But tell me a little bit about your family dynamics. Like, how was it like within the house, amongst the parents, about maybe the siblings? You can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So for my family, something that really marked us as a family is music. So my
Okay.
family from my father's side, all of the guys from my father's side, my uncles, cousins, my brother, my father, they are all musicians, right? They all play the guitar, or they play the
Hmm.
bass, or they are singers. Um, I am the first drummer in the family, so of course we
Okay.
played together. Um, and the music we liked the most was rock music, and and
Hmm.
and all the different genres that comes through rock music. So therefore, um, my family was really active and close together because of music, right? Which was
Okay.
really nice. Um,
Sure.
and then that brought us closer. But at the same time, it was really hard to talk about anything else, right? It's
Okay.
like those movies in which the father was, like the American footballer, and therefore he wants the son to be an American footballer, but if he's not, then they don't
Hmm.
know how to talk. It was kind of like that,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But other than that, it was a great family. They were really welcoming with me bringing friends to the house all the time. It was really fun growing up there. It was a really fun family. I'm really happy with the life I had there, for sure.
Mm, okay. I think you told me this, and now I think it explains where I read on your profile you were like the freelance musician, and it was like for a fundraiser, I believe. I think you still do that. I read that on your LinkedIn. What
Oh
was
yeah,
that?
yeah. I don't do it anymore, but back in Mexico, I had multiple bands, different bands, but
Okay.
it was not weird for us that different organizations, NGOs, and so on would reach out to us and say, "Hey, we are doing an event. Would you be willing to play for free?" And we did it. We did it.
Hmm.
Big organizations we played for Make-A-Wish
Okay.
Foundation, Mexico, of course,
Yeah.
and we played also for a Greenpeace event. So the different organizations like that, and many local organizations as well, just for fun and
Okay.
just to help. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And do you still play anything? Any other instrument?
So I brought here to Canada a cajon. So cajon is a
Okay.
wooden box, literally a wooden
Hmm.
box, quite big, that you sit on it and you play on it.
Okay.
Right? It originally comes from Spain. It was usually
Hmm.
used to play flamenco, and then I brought it to try to bring some of the music with me. So here I have some friends that also play, and every now and then we play, but not as often as I would wish, right? And we haven't played for any
Okay.
organizations anymore. I wish it would be cool to do it, but I just don't find the time.
Okay. Okay. So tell us, like, what also led you to start your own event management company? How did that happen?
Sure, it's funny because my brother has always had the dream to have his own brand of guitars. He wants to make guitars from
Hmm.
scratch. And at that time, we said, okay, how can we get from not having a business to actually having a business? Because doing guitars takes a lot of money. You need a lot of equipment and you need to buy a lot of tools
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I said to him, well, we can use the equipment we use for the band because we have the microphones, we have the sound system, we have some lighting, and do events, right? Because we already have the equipment,
Hmm.
why not? And that's how the event management company came to be, because we wanted to gather enough funds to actually fund for my brother's idea of making guitars. So that's how we
Okay.
started, and it was quite a good business. I had it for a while, and we specialized in organizing theme events. So if somebody wanted to do a Alice in Wonderland party or something like that, we tried to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a fun. I believe it was called Make Some Noise Productions.
That's
The name is actually pretty catchy. Yeah.
It is. It is. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun. Really fun. Actually, when I came here to Vancouver, I said, "Oh, maybe I can do some events." But man, it's so
Hmm.
difficult to do things in Canada. You need to have so many
Hmm.
certifications and so many steps and so many rules. Which I mean, they make the country what it is, which is a safe country and things work well.
Yeah.
But in Mexico, you don't need those things to actually do events. You can do go whatever, do whatever, right? So in that sense, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it sounds like a fun thing for sure. Tell me also something about Mexico. You did explain, the two kinds of Mexico that people might not know about. Anything else that people might not know about that you would like to share?
Anything else about Mexico? Yeah, I think it was quite shocking to me that Mexico, at least Mexico City, for me, Mexico City feels like a first world country on its own. It's
Okay.
quite technological, especially Ciudad de Mexico, not Mexico State, but Ciudad de Mexico. Public transportation is quite good. The banking system is really, really good. How you do your taxes and you declare your taxes, it's all digital, quite safe, right? All of these things I thought a country like Canada would have, but I was impressed when they didn't. So I
Hmm.
came from a third world country thinking that there was going to be so many things better here, and they aren't. For example, just 2 days ago, I was talking about how here the public lighting in the streets is not that good, at least in
Yeah.
Vancouver, right? It's quite dim, there's not too many lights, and I thought to myself, well, maybe that is because Canada is such a safe country that you don't need that many
Hmm.
lights at night. I don't know. But in Mexico, it's not like that.
Okay.
It has quite proper lighting at night, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, why is that? So those are the small details that I thought, wow, Mexico is more advanced in so many things that I didn't thought, at least
Hmm.
Mexico City, um, compared to Canada, which is for me a first world country, right? So that was shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very, very interesting. Okay. I also like to pivot towards your career choice amongst all this music and art that your family kind of like belonged into, and you chose to do psychology. You did your bachelor's in psychology. I'm sure there must be a story behind it that what led you to get into that.
Yeah, sure. So I actually wanted to do a bachelor in drumming. I wanted to be
Drumming.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to be a professional drummer. And when I told that to my
Okay.
father, he was like, no, you need to have a real career. So
Ah.
I went to him
Okay.
and said, well, I think if it's not drumming, I would like to go into psychology. And then he said the same phrase, no, you need to have a real career. I was like, hey, listen, it's going to be either drumming or psychology. And I chose psychology. Why did I choose
Okay.
psychology? At the time, I chose psychology because I have always find interesting in human behavior, and I have always had this passion for helping people. So I thought psychology made sense. But there was a point mid of my career, of my bachelor, that I realized that I was doing that more out of curiosity than anything
Hmm.
else. And I was just in the
Okay.
middle of the bachelor that I realized I don't think I want to do this for a living. I was just trying to satisfy my curiosity of how we work, but that's about it. But the choice was
Okay.
made, right? So I needed to finish my career. Yeah.
Somehow, okay. That in any way help you discover something about yourself? I mean, 3 years of psychology, you tap into various parts of yourself. Also, I believe you might have not before. Something that you discovered.
Yeah, of course, of course. It was 4 years of psychology, and something that I discovered is that by the end of the bachelor, the last 2 semesters, you need to do your practicum. So you need to deal with real patients. And what I
Mm-hmm.
discovered is that I'm really empathetic, so much that when I was
Hmm.
hearing one of my patients talk, I was like, oh man, I cannot do this. Because it was this woman that was telling me how her husband beat her father
Okay.
raped her, and now her uncle was trying to steal some of his children from her. It was a crazy story, man. It was a crazy,
Wow.
crazy story. And she
Yeah.
came to me, a 21-year-old kid, for help. I was like, I cannot do this.
21-year-old? Oh
Yeah,
my god.
yeah. Like that
Yeah.
was not okay, right? So yeah, I discovered that I'm more empathetic than I thought, and at the same time, I said to myself, I don't think I can do this for a living because the emotional charge of these negative things
Is a
is so
lot.
much. Not everybody can handle that, right? And my respect to people who can.
Yeah.
Uh, it was not for me, so I thought to myself, I think I can help people elsewhere. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Is that the advice you would give to somebody who might think of going into psychology?
I would say two things. First of all, make sure that you're going for the right reasons because to be honest, most people who go into most of the choices we make, my friend, they are projections of what we have in our mind, right? So most people that go into
Yeah.
psychology, they usually go because they're trying to solve an issue, internal issue they have through studying psychology, right? So first of all, I
Okay.
would say make sure that you're going for the right reasons, which is passion to help
Hmm.
somebody else and passion for psychology as an art, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so make sure you're going for that and not for you to try to solve an internal issue because if that's the case, you're not gonna have a good time trying to helping somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely like a great advice. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now I want to talk about you deciding to move to Canada, packing your life in two suitcases and coming to a different country. But before that, tell us a little bit about like what you were doing just before you moved, and then what influenced the decision to move to Canada.
Sure. So right after finishing my psychology bachelor, I was trying to get into human resources in Mexico, which usually human resources is a profession that only psychologists practice in Mexico. Um,
Okay.
but in Mexico, at least back in that time, you needed to be a woman to work in human resources. So I went to a lot of interviews
Okay.
in which they say no because I'm a man.
Hmm.
After so many rejections and 6 months of looking for a job and not getting any, I was like, okay, I need to do something else. So the only opportunity that came to me was the opportunity to work in an agency that was selling
Okay.
programs to study abroad.
Hmm.
Canada, US, UK, Australia, any English speaking country. And I got the job and I happened to be really good at it. So I was a good salesperson. And I was a good salesperson not because I'm a really good salesperson, but because I'm really honest, right?
Hmm.
So when I was telling people how going to study in Canada was, I was not trying to say what I thought they wanted to hear. I was just being honest. I was being, hey,
Yeah.
listen, getting a job is really hard. Okay. Hey, listen, if you go
Hmm.
to a home state, this is going to be the situation. It might not be nice. And because of that, I didn't sell the most programs. I was not the one that was making the most money, but I was the one with less rejections, right? Or
Hmm.
not less rejection, less cancellations.
Okay.
My programs were once they were sold, no cancellations,
Hmm.
and no complaints. So that's what I was the best salesperson. Um, and as a reward of being the best salesperson, that 1 year that I worked there, they sent me to Vancouver to get to know some of the schools that we were representing. And that's how the opportunity of coming here came because one of those schools said, hey man, listen, we really like you, we are going to give you a scholarship if you want to come.
Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
you were saying like during when the time that you were working, that agency sent you to Vancouver. You're saying
That's
that.
correct. That's correct. Yes. They sent me to
Okay.
Vancouver with a group of students, really young students,
Okay.
like 10 years old to 17. So they needed somebody older to get them through the
Mhm.
airport and whatnot for them to come to their summer camps, right? So
Okay.
I came as a chaperone for 1 month. And during that
Mhm.
month, they told me, hey, man, listen, the kids are going to be there having fun, but we want you to get to know some of our partner schools. And I got to know some of the partner schools, and
Okay.
one of them offered me the scholarship. Um, and then when I went back to Mexico, I talked to my father. And then um, when I was young, when my brother and I were young, I was just 10 years old. My mother went through, how do you say this in English? Brain stroke, brain stroke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from that moment on, my mother has been handicapped, right? And since we were children,
Okay.
my father told my brother and me, listen, when you get older, you need to get responsible for your mother, right? You need to be there for
Mhm.
her, and therefore you cannot go anywhere out of Mexico City,
Hmm.
out of Mexico at all. So for us, it was always you need to be here for your mother. after this opportunity
Mhm.
came to be, and I said to my father, "Hey, listen, this happened to me. A school is offering me a scholarship." He said, "You know what? I think I can manage to do my work here, and I think I can take care of your mother from here to when we die. So you are free to go." And that for
Okay.
me was the decision maker, because all my life I grew up thinking I cannot go anywhere because I need to take care of my mother. And
Hmm.
suddenly my father said, I think you can actually do it. So I said, like, "Oh, okay, let's do it," right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm kind of like I'm not sure how to react to that because it's kind of like a very sensitive issue. Like you literally like deciding to just go away like that from your family. What were your like your initial thoughts and emotions when you just thought of doing that?
So it was concern, of course, because my first reaction was like, "Are you sure I could go?" Right? I think you guys need me here. I want to be
Hmm.
close to my family and so on. But then my father told me, "Dude, this is an opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. And then if things
Hmm.
don't go
Yeah.
well, if things go south, you can always come back to Mexico and we'll be here, but you cannot always go,
Absolutely.
right?" So that was the
Hmm.
decision maker.
Okay. Okay. So how was the process for you? Like, how long did it take you to really come here?
Not so long, because I knew the process already. I was working in the industry, so I was familiar with the visa application and so on. So for me, it was quite fast. It was just 3 months.
Okay.
3 months.
In 3 months, you were able to land here.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
quite fast. No, 4 months, 4 months or so. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
but again, that was only because I knew the process already. I had the scholarship for the one school that I wanted to go to. So I
Yeah.
skipped all the research phase. I skipped all the how to apply for the visa and so on and so forth.
Okay. Okay. So I believe you came to Canada in 2018, right?
That's correct. Yes, January
Yeah.
2018.
So tell us January 2018. Okay. Tell us about your first day and what was just going on in your mind when you landed.
First, I was just so tired because I didn't sleep through the flight, and it was an overnight flight. So it was from 12 a.m. In the morning from Mexico to 5 a.m. in the morning Vancouver, and I didn't sleep. So I was
Mhm.
just tired. I didn't care I was in another country. I didn't care about visas or whatever. I was like, man, I just want to sleep. Um,
Okay.
but we arrived here to Vancouver. I came here with my best friend. He came with me to Canada. Um, and we happened to book an accommodation, both of us together, sharing a room, because, as you know, Canada is expensive. So the only thing we could
Yeah,
afford
of course.
was sharing a bedroom in basement. So when we
Mhm.
arrived to the place that we booked, I was kind of like terrified because it was a really old house from the 70s. It has mold in it. It smelled really, really bad. I can see that it had some water damage. It was really bad. Um, and of
Hmm.
course, as I mentioned to you, when in a third country like Mexico, you hear about Canada, you usually envision that things are going to be better, right? Like,
Rosie. Yeah.
yes, of course, of course. So
Yeah.
that was not the kind of house I was expected to land in a first world country. So for me, that was a shock, right?
Hmm.
But I accepted. I said, I think everybody needs to start somewhere when you come to Canada, because it's just like hitting the restart button on your life. And I accepted quite quickly.
So, Javier, I read one of your recent posts about the Canadian dream being broken and international students don't deserve to be treated as chronic ATMs. I did read about that, and you were referring to another article, of course. I want to know from you that what was your perception of Canadian dream when you came, as things have changed now. It's 2024. It's going to be like 6 years almost. It's actually 6 years. We are recording in January 2024. Tell me, what was your perception of Canadian dream when you decided to come here?
Right, sure. So for me, one of the biggest shocks is that I was working in the industry already, international education, from Mexico, selling courses for Mexicans to study abroad. So I was trained to say things that were not entirely true, or at least I was trying to
Hmm.
hide the truth. But how would I know, right? I was in Mexico. I had never left Mexico before. I didn't know
Hmm.
Canada. So when I arrived here as an international student, and I realized that there was many things that they were not working properly, or as I was selling, that for me was a shock, right? Like, oh wow, there's many things that
Yeah.
I was not properly saying. just for me to close the sale, right?
Yeah.
And that was not right. That for me was not right. So what I thought the Canadian dream would be is that I thought we would get into a system that is more welcoming for international students and immigrants, but I have found that is not
Mm-hmm.
the case. Everything is harder for
Mm-hmm.
international students. Like if even opening your bank account back then was super hard, right? I think
Hmm.
nowadays there
Yeah.
are more banks that are open to that, but everything is hard,
Mm-hmm.
man. You want to rent an apartment? Good luck, because you need Canadian references, right? And you need to have a job for you
Yeah.
to rent an apartment. But if you're just
The
arriving,
credit score as well.
it
Yeah.
doesn't make
At
sense.
times.
So the actual
Hmm.
system is not aligned to welcome people. It's quite the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when I say I think the Canadian dream is broken, because what Canada is pitching and is trying to say to other countries, hey, we welcome immigrants, is not also true. Now, I'm going to give Canada its credit. From all the countries that usually receive immigrants, I think Canada is the easiest for you to immigrate, right?
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean
Without
that
a
it's
doubt.
actually easy to immigrate. Um,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, what they're pitching to the world, hey, come, we welcome international students, is not quite true, right? So that's what I mean when I say that the Canada dream is broken.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. Was there anything other thing particular that you were selling and you were like completely shocked by it? That, oh my god, that what was I saying? This doesn't make any sense.
Yes, yes. So the whole accommodation situation, that for me was
Hmm.
so. When you came to Canada, what type of accommodation did you get? Did you get your own accommodation or homestay or?
Well, well, my I have shared that story a couple of times. I'll share with you. I believe I could not find a house. I think I was prepared for everything else. I knew I can do my chores, my own, my laundry, cooking, everything. I wasn't prepared that it will take me forever, Javier, to find a house because every second week I was just moving literally with my three big luggage bags, because I
Mm,
could not find a house properly. I was just changing places. I had just like one pant, one shirt, which I was still wearing in the to my school like every other day. It was like that for the first, at least for I remember, like I think I got my house in my fifth week in Canada. So yeah, it was
oh
pretty
wow,
hard for me.
wow.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, yeah. For me, accommodation was one of the biggest shocks in the sense that I was trained to say that if you go to a homestay, which is that a Canadian family would host you, you will be
Hmm.
welcome by a family that was going to introduce you into Canadian culture, whatever the Canadian culture is. But it's usually not true. At least in Vancouver, most of those families are Filipino families, and most of them actually don't
Hmm.
speak proper English, and they don't care,
Oh
right? So
yes.
it's like,
Yeah.
we don't even speak to you, student. Here's your food, and then I want you to come at home at this time. Um,
Hmm.
so that idea of us promoting, hey, you're gonna be welcomed by a Canadian family. They're gonna show you the culture. Some of my coworkers on the day even promote the idea of saying, hey, the families are so welcoming that sometimes they're gonna even take you to the zoo and they're gonna take you to know the town. And it's not true, right?
No. Yeah.
um, Shared accommodation, right? Like you going into a student house, was also experience that I was seeing. It's really nice. You're gonna have a great time. But man, I went to a shared accommodation and it was really, really, really not a good time. I had bed bugs in my
Hmm.
mattress, and the company tried to charge us for the bed bugs, saying, "Hey man, the bed bugs probably got into the
Oh
house
wow.
because you had them," but it was not true. Um,
Okay.
there was a lot of things in the house, as I mentioned before, that they were not working properly. They were broken. It was not a nice house. So all of those things are things that I think students should know before coming here, right?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think what you mentioned about the Filipino families welcoming, I feel like it's less of an integration and it's more of like just a shelter. Like this is the place, okay, live it. They're not really like showing you around or not helping you integrate into the culture.
Well, for
Well,
them, for them, it's just
yeah,
financial aid, right? It's like,
absolutely.
many
Yeah.
of them came here as refugees as well, and,
Yeah.
and maybe because of that they don't have the English language to do something else. But they were
Hmm.
able to afford a house, and therefore they want to make the most out of their house. So it's, hey, why don't we rent a room? But that's it. For
Hmm.
them, international students are usually just, they represent financial aid for them. It's not that they actually want
Hmm.
to host the students. I mean, there's families like that, of course, but the majority I
Hmm.
found is not like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I also want to talk a little bit about the courses that you chose. They were a little different from what you were doing, pursuing in Mexico. You end up doing digital marketing and UI UX, the web and app designing. So why did you get into that? And was it like difficult to go back to school again? I don't know how long you were off the teaching, the learning, but how was it like for you?
Yeah, so I don't think it's that different from psychology. I think if I could go to the past and study something else, I would study marketing. And then marketing and
Okay.
psychology are, of course, quite related, right? And
Hmm.
UI UX also, when you get to know what they actually do, is quite related to psychology as well. So it's just human behavior polarized and translated into design. So again, it's just
Mm.
psychology.
Okay.
Um, I went into marketing because the school that offered me to come here to Canada, and they offered me a quite good scholarship, was just teaching three things: web development, UI UX, and marketing, digital marketing. Um,
Hmm.
so from those two programs, I was like, well, marketing sounds interesting to me. That's why I decided to study that. But it's quite related to psychology, right? How it was for me to
Hmm.
study, it was quite nice. That school in particular had a system that I really liked because they were only focused on
Mm.
tech programs. Their whole structure was similar to how real agency works, in the sense that they will bring
Okay.
real clients with real problems from the world.
Professionals.
Yes,
Mm.
and they would ask for the school to do solutions, and then the students would try to implement. And there was a lot of
Hmm.
cross collaboration between the different programs. So it was really nice. It was quite interesting.
Absolutely.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, even in my program, I had like a stage, they call it in French, which is basically like an internship sort of a thing.
Mm,
But it was a real project for me. We have here the cases called Nanook cases. I don't know if you know about that brand. They make like heavy gear cases. And we were like asked to do like, for one of the new products, we were like asked to make like a full marketing campaign. So that was like a really big learning process, which is something also I loved about my program as
mm.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
hands-on experience aspect I really liked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And were you studying while were you not studying? I meant to say that were you working anywhere else when you were studying? Were you working anywhere?
Yes, yes, yes. I, as many Mexicans do, it's like cliche Mexican. I started working in construction for the first couple of months that I didn't find a proper job. So
Okay.
working in construction in the winter was one of the hardest things I have done. Man, it's really, really hard. Um,
I'm sure, yeah.
and then I worked in a restaurant, a poke restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you did that like throughout your studies?
Yes, yeah, yeah. I did a co-op program, so it was part-time studying,
Okay.
part-time well, full-time studying, part-time working. So I did that. Yeah, and then
Okay.
back in that moment in 2018, if you were working part-time in any place, you were able to afford rent and whatever, right? You were able to live. Now you can't.
I see what you are
Now
saying.
you can't,
Yeah,
right? So
of
that's
course.
one of
Yeah.
the other things that I would encourage international students to consider is it's really hard to make a living right now only working part-time.
Yeah. Do you remember your very first rent that you were paying?
Yeah, it was really cheap because I was paying we were paying $450 each for a shared room. It was a big room, but it was just
Hmm.
$450.
Okay.
Yeah, so that.
What a coincidence! I was paying 450 as well
Oh,
for
really?
my room. Yeah, it was but in Montreal it was a little cheaper. It's still a little cheaper compared to the rest of Canada
Mm,
accommodation. But I was paying like 450 for my like personal room. It was a good room, very sweet, good room. I think I stayed in that house for like 2 years. I believe I never left that house. I love
nice,
that.
nice, nice.
Yeah,
For a personal room, that's good. That's good. Private. Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good price.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I don't think you can find something like that, man.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
Yeah, things have changed for sure.
yeah. In just 6 years, right? Which is crazy.
Tell us like something within your immigrant journey before Thrive, before you got into Thrive, that uh, where you were literally like in your lowest, and how did you pull yourself out of that, imposter syndrome pit, so
Mm.
to say?
I think one of my lowest points was after finishing my studies and after outcoming the just working part-time. I was working already in my industry, which is marketing and international education. um,
Hmm.
COVID happened, right? And I got laid off
Hmm.
because I was working for an international student accommodation provider. and they closed the border, so there was no more students
Hmm.
coming in, right? So because there
Yeah.
was no students, they laid me off, and I was unemployed for around 6 to 7 months. And I
Okay.
have never felt the lowest in my life, because even though,
Hmm.
I mean, there has never been a situation like this, like a pandemic, um, that was this scale, so big, and so many people affected. Like, it was not my fault or anybody else's fault that I was laid off.
Yeah.
Regardless,
Of course.
imposter syndrome told me, man, you are not making it because of you, right? You don't have the skills, you are not good enough. And then it was really hard for me, because at that time I was working in a closed work permit, which meant that I was
Okay.
only allowed to work for my
Oh
employer,
wow.
and my employer
Yeah.
has declared bankruptcy. So what do I
Hmm.
do,
Oh
right?
my God.
Um,
Yeah.
so back in those days, I was living only on my savings and also the employment insurance, which, thank God, there's an
Hmm.
employment insurance here in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Um, but man, I felt really, really bad, because I was doing nothing most of the days, right? I was trying to apply to jobs, but there was not that many jobs, first of all, and second of all, the ones that there were, they were not interested in me because I had a closed work permit, right?
Hmm.
So,
Of
so they would
course.
need to
Yeah.
sponsor me again, and for them that is a headache. That's another thing. Most employers here are not willing to sponsor immigrants.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to tell that so harshly, because I know there's many people saying, "Hey, I want to go to Canada and get a sponsor," but so many of them are not even familiar with how to sponsor people, and sometimes it's not even that complicated. Yet
Hmm.
they don't want to deal with that, right? So that, I think, that
Yeah.
was my lowest, my friend. Yeah,
So how did you pull yourself out of it then? What was like the driving force for you?
drugs. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. No,
What?
my family for sure. My family for sure.
Yeah.
My friends, because back in that time I was living with my friends in a really big house, but we were living 7 people there. All of them my friends. So being with them after they finished working, because thankfully for them, their industry, they didn't stop because of the pandemic. They just migrated to work remotely. After they finish working, I
Okay.
will go downstairs, play some games with them, chat, they were kind enough to, sometimes they bought me, they pay for my meal or whatever. So I felt loved. So the fact
Hmm.
that my friends were there for me, that was quite nice. And then
Hmm.
when Canada opened its borders again, opportunities start coming my way, so I felt better about myself
Yeah.
too, right? So
Okay.
yeah, I think that was it. Yeah,
Okay. So short answer is your friend's love was your drug
that's
that pulled
correct.
you out.
That's correct. Yes, yes.
Oh, tell me more in terms of anything related to your accent, maybe something that do you think at any point your accent acted as a hindrance or any anecdotes related to the accent?
I thought about it, like, even when I saw the name of your podcast, I thought, like, has my accent ever played a role in something in my life in Canada, that was
Yeah.
that was impactful? I don't think my accent has been an issue. I think sometimes cultural difference have been an issue. So I thought of this
Okay.
one time that I was working in the poke restaurant. Do you know what poke
Okay.
is? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the poke bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I know that.
it's kind of like
Yeah.
sushi, but in a bowl, right? Just if
Absolutely.
somebody's
Yeah.
hearing this and they don't know, it's just sushi in a bowl. Um, I was working on the poke restaurant, and then this one guy, it was one of my first week. One guy comes in, he orders a tuna poke or whatever, and we go to the end.
Hmm.
And when he paid me in cash, and he said, "Can you give me one extra tuni, please?" And
Okay.
I didn't know that in Canada, a
Okay.
$1 coin is a loonie, and a $2 coin,
Looney.
it's a
Yeah.
toonie.
It's
So because I didn't
absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
and he said, "Can you give me an extra tuni, please?" Tuni. I relate tuni with tuna. So I went ahead and I grabbed a scoop of tuna with an ice cream scoop, right? I grabbed a scoop of tuna and I
Okay.
went to the guy and I approached to him and I offered, kind of like, without saying anything, I offered the spoon to him. And I was kind of like about to drop the spoon of tuna on his hand, and for some reason the guy, I think he didn't understand what was happening either, but he extended his
Yeah.
hand. He put the hand like, "Please give me that." So there was a really uncomfortable moment that we were both looking at our eyes, like, is this okay? Is this what you're asking? And we were like, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "Well, just for more tuna." He was like, "No, no, no. I asked for an extra tuni, right? I mean, the
Toonie.
$2 coin." I was like, "Oh." I didn't know, man. Nobody trained me that Looney and Toonie was a thing. So
Oh
yeah, I
wow.
was about to serve this guy a spoon of tuna in his hand because I didn't know.
Oh my god, that is hilarious. I mean, it's one of the funniest stories I've heard for
Yeah,
sure on
yeah,
the
yeah. Yeah.
podcast.
To this day, I remember his eyes. It was so intense, man. It was a really intimate moment for me to try to scoop the tuna on his hand.
Wow, love that.
Yeah.
All right. Um, now I wanna once again, circle back on the point where we're discussing about the Canadian dream, and I want to mention your post again, where you address the broken Canadian dream. I want to talk a little bit about that and how the Thrive magazine, which you work on, can help international students fix that broken Canadian dream.
Mm. Yeah, 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 for sure. So I co-founded Thrive Magazine, which is a magazine for and by international students, in which what we are trying to do is inform students or prospective students in how life is in Canada, like for real. Because the thing is that most of the information that is out there of how to come to Canada and whatnot is usually provided or delivered by either schools or agencies, which are the middle guys who are trying
Mhm,
to get you into Canada. And therefore, a lot of that information is biased. Maybe they're trying to convince you to go
mhm,
to a particular school, or maybe they're not saying how hard it's actually to get a job, or that people are not that willing to sponsor. There's many misinformation or information that has not been told. So
yeah.
that's what I wanted to create an unbiased resource of information for international students so that they make an informed decision of whether they want to come to Canada or not. That's the idea.
Mm,
So for us to do that, we do two things. First of all, we write a lot of articles. Most of them are written by international students that share their own experience.
mhm,
And second, we if we don't know something, we go to an expert and try to talk to that expert so that we can provide proper information, like immigration consultants or
mhm,
financial analysts,
yeah.
and so on and so forth. So how does this support the Canadian dream, which is what
Mhm,
you asked for? Is like
yeah.
I think the Canadian dream might be broken, but that doesn't mean it's a dream that you shouldn't pursue. The only thing that means is that you should know what you're going to be challenged, right, by going to for
Mhm,
through this dream. So it's just for people that made this decision to make them informed. You want to come to Canada? Here is how it actually is. Do you still want to come? Then let's do it. Because at
mhm,
the end of the day,
yeah.
it's gonna make you grow a lot professionally and personally. It's a really big challenge, but if you overcome it, man, you can do anything,
Mhm,
right? And second,
yeah, yeah.
I still do believe that even though Canada has its flaws in many things, it's quite a better place than some of our home countries, right? For many reasons that I'm not gonna get
Mhm,
into, but yeah.
yeah. Well, like I told you before, I did go through, some articles, and obviously the magazines that come every month, they are incredible. And for the listeners, I would like to read, a few lines from your mission, which are catering to international students, which says that Thrive is more than just a media and publishing company. We are your ally on your international student journey. We are here to make your experience richer and more rewarding. Our approach is rooted in research and expertise. We collaborate with industry leaders and conduct extensive research to provide you with top quality, unbiased, and honest content. And I feel like that's everything that a national student does need. And like I mentioned initially in my intro as well, there's some sort of like a resource, a reliable resource that one needs when they come new to the country. And I highly recommend to my listeners to definitely check that out, the Thrive magazine for sure. And where they can find that, please tell us more about that.
Yeah, of course. So they can go to thrive.ca, which is thrive with double B. Thrive comes from the English word of to thrive, which is kind of like to prosper or to grow. But we added
Yeah.
a second V in it because of Vancouver, because we started as an international student
Mm.
magazine for Vancouver alone. The reason why is because me and my business partner Rafa, having been in Vancouver um, for so long, we know a lot of Vancouver, so that's why we wanted to write a magazine just for Vancouver. Now we are expanding to all
Mm.
of Canada, so we are going to invite people from all of Canada to help us write these articles. But yeah, they can go to our website directly, or they can go to our Instagram or TikTok, and really
Mhm.
soon we are going to open also our YouTube channel.
Okay. This was actually one of my questions which I hesitant to ask, that why there is a double V. But thank you for answering that. I was very curious about that. So yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because of Vancouver. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the links to check out the website and all the articles can be found in the show notes. So before Javier, we get into the final segment of the podcast, I have introduced this new segment in this season, which I call Know Your Host, where I give my guests an opportunity to ask me any questions they might have. So go ahead.
100%. I wanted to ask you this actually, which would be, what would you say has been the biggest challenge for you in this whole journey?
Wow. Uh, I mean, that would be a long answer
Okay.
to
Okay.
to answer that, but I'll try to make it short. I think the biggest challenge was definitely, letting people know the value of the work I have done back in India, because I was like always, within I was into advertising back in India. I have done marketing. I've done bachelor's in journalism and mass communication. I did a little bit of radio as well. I have been a narrator all my life, and all these things. I feel like it was hard for me to convey that value to people here. That was definitely the biggest challenge. But at the same time, it was also about getting very comfortable in my own skin, getting very comfortable with my own identity.
Hmm.
And I feel that was kind of hard initially. I say that because there have been, infinite examples which I've shared on the podcast as well, which were regarding my accent. Yes, it has evolved now because it's been 6 years and I speak English most of my time. Like 18 hours of the day, I just speak English. Out of 24, I'm awake.
Hmm.
So that was the definitely a challenge, understanding the local culture, understanding the tiny tiny nuances which kind of makes you feel more belonged in a new country. And obviously, navigating a life as an immigrant where I was in the four walls of my house, four walls of my parents' house, where everything is kind of served to you, never went out, never, you know seek reached out to anybody for any sort of a help, even in terms of jobs. Somebody knew somebody who was hiring, and they end up hiring you. So I feel like all these aspects, it was literally like starting from scratch, starting from zero again. So I would say this is something which I've just said sort of like encompasses the challenges sort of I have faced. A lot of other things were there here and there during the job search also, where the question have been more about my looks or my accent and less about the skills that I've had. And so all those things came my way, some comments and some other uh, aspects, where even like managing taxes for the first
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
cooking for the first time. I don't know how to cook back in India. So yeah, I think everything which I'm sure like many of the listeners would relate to, that also all the above was something which was challenging. But I'm glad, I have no complaints. Honestly, I'm glad I've got through all that, because it definitely built me into the person I am today. Yeah.
Okay. And is there something that if you would have the opportunity to go back to a younger self, is there something that you would like that younger self to know? Like, hey, you should know this before going to Canada.
Yeah, so one thing which I actually, another guest also asked me this question, and I did reflect on that again. And I think I would say definitely, like, stop questioning yourself, a lot, or don't be so hard on yourself, because we do have
Hmm.
this tendency to like, do more, and be also the point where you say be all the time. We were like, I was like taught, like, be positive, everything is okay and fine. I feel like it went to the level of toxic positivity also. You don't have to be positive all the time. It's okay to go up and down and have those emotions and embrace those emotions. I feel like that is something I will teach that younger Gurasi, that it's okay to feel emotions, happy, sad, angry, whatever it is. These are just emotions and they need to be embraced. Don't be shy away from all this, because once you are able to tackle that, you'll be able to tackle everything else in your life. So this is something I would definitely say to the younger self. Yeah.
Okay, great, great. I think that's good advice, not only for your younger self, but for people in general, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love
absolutely.
it,
Yeah.
love it. Okay, and then
Okay.
I think another question I had for
Oh,
you is,
there's more.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. It's I'm really glad to see that there's more and more people like yourself doing things to inform and create awareness of some difficulties that immigrants had in Canada. Like, what pushed you to doing this, right? I know that probably this comes because of the challenges you went through,
Absolutely.
but like, did you try to find some resources about this before you deciding to start your own?
Um, Javier, I was working in a like a market research company,
Okay.
and I was like interviewing international students who were recent graduates,
Oh.
especially from the Ontario College. I was working like on the third party, basically on behalf of Ontario's Ministry of Education.
Mm,
So I was interviewing them just to understand their challenges and how the life has been after graduating. And I was kind of in the same boat where I was trying to figure out like how can I get the foot in the door, in my industry. I was trying to do that as well. I worked in that place for I believe like almost like I think 18 months or so, but I feel like that gave me a very good insight of the challenges that other people are also facing. And I realized that, okay, these guys need help. And so do I. But I was like, instead of me, reinventing the wheel, starting something new, like a career coaching or like a resource, something like that, I said, how about I collaborate with these exceptional people just like yourself, and you're also partners with Is Empower, Ramneet and Pat. So those guys, I said, okay, these guys are doing incredible work. Even like Ritika, from Redefined,
mhm,
all these people. I said, why not to collaborate with these people, bring out their stories, and then tell people that, hey, these are the resources available for all of you to access, which were not there maybe like 5, 6 years ago. So
mhm,
I would
mhm,
say like my research was that conversations I was having with people, and I think I don't even have the number of students I've spoken to and how many of them literally cried on the phone because they all are in the same boat as me, where my work permit is expiring and so is theirs, and they were not able to find a job and they might have to go back to their countries. It was like that. So I feel like that was like a good market research for me to
mhm.
prepare myself to start this podcast. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm really happy that you're doing this because back in the day when I started working in this industry, I realized that most of the people involved in your journey as an international student, they are not
Yeah.
international students. They were either people
Hmm.
from your home country that has never left, or at least that was my case in Mexico, and people in Canada who are Canadian, and therefore they don't understand the international student journey. I'm really happy to see that there's
Absolutely.
more and more companies popping up, founded by international students, managed by international students, especially agencies, because those are the best. If you manage to get help from somebody who was in your shoes, that's the best thing that you can do.
Hmm.
And I have seen more and more and more pop up, which for me means that these feelings that we have, everybody else is having, right? And these flaws that we
Hmm.
are seeing, everybody else saw already. So hopefully our own actions and our own proactivity is gonna lead to more of us helping us, right? um
Yeah, yeah,
because I don't know
100%.
if you agree with this statement, but I don't think there's a proper international student community. I think we are
Hmm.
just international students and that's it, and we are kind of like
Hmm.
standalones. And then when you arrive,
Hmm.
probably if you are from India, then you hang out with Indians. If you're from Mexico, you hang out with Mexicans. But we don't hang out and we don't cooperate together as international students, and I think we should.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with you, Ab. At the same time, I would say I don't blame them also because in this foreign land, everybody seek that some sort of familiarity and comfort. And I think you tend to find that in your own language, the people who speak the same language or people who eat the same food sometimes.
Of
I feel
course.
like that's one of the reasons it could be, but I do see a lot of like changes happening. Like look at us today, we belong to like sort of like a different cultures and different groups as well, and now we are collaborating together. I feel like that line is getting blurred, and I'm hoping, and I am pretty positive, honestly, that it's gonna we all are gonna get together and integrate more and more in the future. I have a gut feeling. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. That's why I'm happy to see more and more of us starting to make our own
Yeah.
projects. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you for those questions. Love them.
Yeah, of course,
All
of
right.
course.
Okay, so now how we're in the final segment of the podcast. I call it Beneath the Accent. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about you. So, ready?
Yep.
So, the question that you asked me, so what advice would you give to your younger self and at what age?
Hmm. Um, I would go back to when I was just out of the bachelor, um,
Mhm.
and I would go back and say, do your proper research. That's what I would say.
What's that one dish from your home country that always brings you comfort and nostalgia?
So as a Mexican, I have to say tacos, but there's so many different kind of tacos. but there's one in particular, one dish that is mole. I love mole, man. It's really good. Which
Hmm.
it could be kind of similar to curry actually, but the base of the mole is chocolate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
So what is in it?
it's not a sweet dish, even though it has chocolate.
Okay.
It's actually spicy, a
Okay.
little bit spicy. It's chocolate and different kinds of chile, and so many different spices go into it. And then you make kind of like a sauce or a curry with it, and you put it
Hmm.
over usually chicken and rice, and that's it. But it's amazing. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm. I hope it's readily available in Canada. I would love to try it. Kind of sounds interesting.
Yeah, of course, of course. If I find a
Yeah.
place near you that they sell mole, I'm gonna let you know.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Right. What's your favorite cultural festival or celebration in Canada? And have you like started celebrating anything?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, I think here in Vancouver, there's a celebration they do, which is called Honda Celebration of Life. I don't know if it's cultural or not, but it's something really Vancouverite, which is a fireworks competition, international fireworks competition. So every year they
Okay.
invite three different countries to participate in this competition, and
Okay.
they do a half an hour continuously non-stop show of fireworks that they need to synchronize with music. And
Hmm.
that event
Okay.
for me, it's amazing because there's so many people that go to see that event. It's like 500,000 people gather in the beach to go see that event.
Oh wow.
And usually that event celebrate each of the countries culture that they invite, because they have invite
Hmm.
India, Korea, Japan, Mexico, and they usually play music from their own country to also celebrate. So
Hmm.
I know it's a really interesting and fun event to go and watch.
Yeah, sounds very, very fun. I wish I could able to witness that
It's
sometime
amazing.
this year,
It's
maybe.
amazing. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Tell us about your first friend that you made in Canada.
First friend that I made in Canada. So oof, I would say that's a Brazilian classmate that I had. Because I mean,
Hmm.
I came in with with my best friend. So for me, I had already a friend in Canada, right?
Of course, yeah.
Um, but someone that I met here was this friend from Brazil that we met in our school. We are really close friends, really good. She's really funny, and there's so many similarities in Mexican and Brazilian culture, of course, because we are Latinos. So we are loud and we are usually extrovert and that kind of stuff. So it was really nice to see somebody else that I could feel related to, even though we were from different countries, right?
Hmm. Okay. And you are still in contact, you said, right?
Yeah, of course, of course. And for me, she's kind of like a mentor also because she already had a lot of experience in marketing, and I was just quite new. I was a
Hmm.
baby, but she has already been working in marketing for a while. So every question I had in the program, I would go and look at her like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" And then she would help me out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm not sure if you have any Punjabi friends, but being loud and extrovert is not limited to Latinos. We are very loud and loud and extrovert as well, if you don't know.
No, I the school that I went to, most of the students were Latin American, so Colombian, Mexican, Brazilian, um, and we had a couple of people that I don't know how they ended up there, but somebody from Kenya, somebody from Indonesia, but we didn't have any Indian at that time in that school. So if it's
Hmm.
not on school, it was really hard for me to meet people from other countries, you know.
Hmm.
So no, I
Okay.
had never had the
Okay.
pleasure to hang out with Punjabi friends. Now
Hmm.
I know more people because I've been working in the industry, but back in the day when I was a
Hmm.
student, it was not the case. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, now you've added me to the list.
Yeah, of course, my friend, and I can see
Yeah,
quite a lot of similarities between Latinos and Punjabi.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, whole my student life, I have just hung out with Latinos, literally.
Really? Yeah.
I've gone to like their parties, eaten their food and everything. But surprisingly, none of them introduced me to mole. I don't know why.
Ooh, no, bad Latino
Yeah,
friends. Bad Latino friends.
Latinos. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Um, Tell me what's something that you ate for the first time in Canada?
Something that I ate for the first time. Uh, there's many things that I ate in Canada for the first time. Because one of the things I like about here is that it's so multicultural that you get to try things, right?
Yeah.
So I tried Lebanese food for the first time here, which was quite good.
Hmm.
Mediterranean food also really
Hmm.
really good. Um, Different dishes from India that I have tried here for the first time. Because of course in Mexico we have Indian food, but it's our own version of it, so I don't know if it counts. So here is
Yeah.
more authentic, I would say.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Canadian dishes, there's not that many. So of course for the first time ever, I tried
Hmm.
poutine here. Beaver tails, but that's about it. Yeah,
Okay. And did you like it? Like poutine? Did you like poutine?
it's okay. It's not that special to be honest. Yeah,
Okay. I get that response. That's why I asked you. I get that
yeah,
response a lot.
it's just okay, man. There's actually no culinary culture in Canada.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. If you had to describe yourself as any creature, what would it be and why?
any creature. Um, I think I would say a wolf. A wolf.
Okay.
The reason why is because I do understand that it's quite common for them in their social behavior to know when they need to go in a pack and know when they need to move and shift for a while to be alone, but
Hmm.
they can
Okay.
come back if needed, right? So I would say, yeah,
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
one superpower. I think that would be teleportation. No question, no question. So I
Hmm.
would go back to my family, eat some mole, come back to my work, something like that. Go visit different countries.
Okay. If you had to create this one law that everybody has to follow, what would it be?
One law, uh, Taco Tuesday. Taco
Okay.
Tuesday. No. I'm
That would
joking.
be fun.
I'm joking. Yeah, it would be nice, but I'm joking. I think something I would do for one law in Canada is that I would make it mandatory for recruiters or companies to know about immigration for them to be able to operate, because it's so
Yeah.
basic for companies to need to hire immigrants. We are 50% of the workforce or more in Canada, right? And companies still don't know about immigration and laws, and it's infuriating.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I would create another law which would be like 5 weeks of vacation for immigrants rather than just 2 weeks, you
That
know?
would be amazing too. That would be quite
Which,
good. Yes.
yeah, because it's not limited for us to just do the local things. We sometimes we want to like travel back and we cannot because 1 week is not enough. Like 2 weeks not enough when you're
Eh,
traveling like 7 seas apart after like 22-hour flight, you know? That's why.
that would be good. That would be good. Or at least for you to be able to
Yeah.
work up to 1 month remotely if you're going to your home country or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know, but
Mhm.
that would be really nice. I would vote for you if you were to run for prime minister.
All right. Thank you for that. Um, and how would you describe Canada in one word or a sentence?
Oof, that's a tough one. I would say challenging. I would say
Hmm.
challenging because, again, coming from a third world country to a first world country, challenge is not something that you think you're going to encounter. But Canada is definitely challenging you all the time, man.
Hmm.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, lastly, if you could leave me with one piece of advice, Javier, what would it be?
Leave you with one piece of advice. I think we were talking a lot about imposter syndrome. And I
Yeah.
think that would be that not everything that goes through your head, it's true, right? We usually, whatever thoughts come to our head, we usually treat them as if they were true or if they were real. But we need to understand that many of them, they are simply not true. So we need to be able to tell apart between something that is useful for us and could help us drive forward and things that are there just to mess our heads. So we need to be self-conscious, like whenever one of these thoughts come, like, hey, maybe you are not enough. It's like, no. This thing you're saying is not true. Don't listen to that. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow, that's deep. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I needed to hear that somehow. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, my friend. Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, how would you describe your experience of being on this podcast today?
Loved it. Loved it. I there's incredible podcast. You go from some really fun stuff, deep stuff, nostalgic, because you start asking about people's background. So I think it's
Yeah.
quite a holistic experience. And I can't wait to hear more and more stories of people that you bring into the podcast, my friend.
Awesome. Very glad to hear that. So thank you. Thank you so much, Javier, for being on the podcast and adding value to my listeners. Thank you.
No, no, on the contrary, my friend, thank you for inviting me and of providing information to people like us that might need it and that might need inspiration or resources for them to move forward. So thank you for what you're doing.